Right, Joe, tip number 2, please.
Okay, tip number 2. Make sure students know whether they're right or wrong, and don't wait until it's too late.
Oh, I like it. Go on, tell me more.
Okay, so again, I'm gonna reference maths, but I think this probably applies in all subjects, most subjects. It's this idea of having students do an entire chunk of practice or exercise, and they're getting it all wrong, and they don't know till the end, and then it's just kind of a waste of time. So, there are various different ways that you can kind of deal with this. And in my first job in teaching, I used to work at a girls' grammar school, where very much me and all my colleagues had this technique of just putting the answers up for an exercise at the beginning. So you could hand out your exercise, and you'd have all the answers on the board, and the students would just work it out, check, got that one right. And that sort of works quite well at A-level as well. And then I moved to another school where immediately I found that the students would just copy down the answers on the board.
Yeah.
So I had to think more cleverly about how to make sure that students were able to know immediately whether they had the understanding to carry on with the exercise. So what I tend to do now is I'll put a task up on the board, and I'll give them, say, a minute or so to get that first question going, and it depends on the topic and how long each question takes. But say I'll give them a minute to get started, and I might have a little circulate round to make sure everyone's on task. And then what I'd normally do is I'll then return to the board, like my whiteboard, so I might have the task up on the screen, and I'll go back to the whiteboard, and I might do the first question on the board. And so, again, that's me doing it live. They should be getting on with their work at that stage, but some of them might be stuck and they might watch me do it. And then I'll work all that out, and then I'll have an answer at the end. And then I'll say to them, and I don't like to interrupt them much while they're working, so I think it's really important for teachers to not constantly talk over students when they're doing exercise. But I will say, right, everyone, the first answer is on the board. Can you make sure you've got that one right before you carry on with the rest of the exercise? Some of them might already be on question 3 by that stage.
Yeah.
And if you've got it wrong, put up your hand, I'll come and help you. And so there's a few things there. First of all, I've got that whole thing modelled on the board. So what it might be is that they look at it and they think, oh, actually, I can see what she's done, and I can see why I've got the different answer, and they might immediately be able to self-correct and then move on, get the next one right. Or they might look and say, oh, my answer's totally wrong, and I have no idea why, and then they put their hand up and I go and help them. But if you don't do this kind of thing, if you're not providing them with 1 or 2 early answers, then it could be that they get the first one wrong, the second one wrong, and the third one wrong, and they do the whole lot wrong, and then you've lost your opportunity to do what your job is, which is to go around and help them improve. So they're not going to make any progress. So I think it's just, there are various techniques. You can provide the answers up front. Another technique is you quite often get worksheets where they have the answers jumbled up at the bottom or something, so students can, they know if they're getting an answer that's not at the bottom, then they know that something's wrong.
So it doesn't say like question 3, the answer's this. It's just as a selection of answers.
So for example, MathsPad have quite a lot of resources where they've got a whole load of questions, and then sort of they'll have a big chunk of answers all jumbled up. And I say to the students, it's not a match-up activity, really. It's an activity where they're working out the answer, and then just check that your answer's at the bottom. If it is, you can cross it off. And if it's not down there, you've done something wrong. So that's just another way of kind of letting them check as they go. But it's just so important, isn't it, that you give them the opportunity to know early on whether they're on the right track, because otherwise you're just wasting sort of exercise of 10-15 minutes where they're getting them all wrong. But just imagine they get them all wrong, and at the end you put the answers up, and you say, right, we're going to purple pen our answers, everyone mark your answers, and then someone mark cross, you say, right, what's next? And it's like, what a waste of time. So I just think it's really important to find a way of providing answers early on, which will depend on your class, how the way you do it, to make sure that they then get the help they need at the right time.
I completely agree, Joe. So three things on this. Again, if I go back earlier on in my career, I thought the key thing was that the kids didn't copy. That was kind of the top thing in my head. So I would always do what you described there, leave the answers till the end. And it's only when you kind of gaining experience that you realise, no, the most important thing here is that the kids are practising the right thing and developing that right fluency. And there is that trade-off of, sure, some kids might try and take advantage of it and just wait till you've done it on the board and so on and so forth, but you're going to get far more benefit from the kids who are taking it seriously and practicing correctly because they've got access to the answers. And my second mantra of our conversation, I like the practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. I think that's a really, really good one to bear in mind, because it's whatever the kids are practicing, that's what they're going to remember, and we want to make sure that's the right thing. Final thing, Joe, just on a practical sense, I love your idea that the kids kind of crack on with their work, and then after a minute or so, you bang up the answer and the method of question 1 to the board, and they can check. Would you then, if it's, let's say, a 10-question exercise, would you then like do the same for kind of question 3 or question 5 a bit later on? How do you manage that as the exercise progresses?
So I think that it really depends on how they're getting on. So obviously, I think circulating around the room is just such a vital part of teaching, and that's why during COVID we really struggled with our teaching, because we couldn't get around the room. But I think if I'm circulating around the room and I can just see there's like a really high level of success with the task, and they all kind of know what they're doing, then I might just actually wait till the end, put all the answers up at the end. But then what I always do when I put the answers up is I say something like, so here are the answers, but I'm not 100% sure they're all right, because, quite often you get mistakes, especially if you've downloaded a resource. So what I want you all to do is, if your answer doesn't match one on the board, just challenge it. Just say to me what you've got, and then and actually it's a really nice technique, because you'll get someone who's like, they'll put up a hand and they'll say, I got a different answer for question 5 and I'm pretty sure mine's right. And I'll say, right, so I'm going to do question 5 on the board now. And then often there'll be other people who have got that one wrong as well.
Yes.
So even if I'm pretty sure the answers are all right, I'll often say to them, if you've got one that differs to mine, put your hand up and we'll go through that one. So I'm not having to go through every single question, but I am going through 1 or 2 at the end. So I will do that in an activity when I'm circulating, I can see a high level of success. If I'm circulating and I'm seeing that there's students that are generally finding some of them, well, say half the class are doing well and half the class are making a bit of a mess of it, then I might say, I'm actually going to put up the first 5 answers halfway through, and if you're getting them all wrong, I'll come to you directly, or I might gather a little group together or something. But yeah, so that really depends on how they're getting on, I think.
Perfect, love it.